Good morning, everyone. How are you today? We are very excited here. My name is Andrew. I'm from Appnovation. I'm the managing director for Appnovation Hong Kong. Today, I'm very excited and proud to have some of my dear friends and panelists joining us on a very interesting topic, one that I'm very passionate about, enterprise agility. Before we dive in, shall we go around the table and say hi to everyone? Julian, do you want to kick us off?
Thanks, Andrew. Yes, my name is Julian. I'm the co-founder of Divit, which we're a Hong Kong-based payments and loyalty company. Previously, I was with Sun Life here in Hong Kong, and before that was with QE Insurance, both in Hong Kong, Australia, and a brief stint in Argentina. So great to be here. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Julian. And Elie, quick word from you.
Yeah, good morning, Josan. Very pleased to be here as well today. I'm actually part of the Jockey Club, Hong Kong Jockey Club, leading all the digital development for the Jockey Club, and as well as actually deploying the enterprise agile for the club. Before the club, actually, I was mostly involved in telecommunication industry for the past 20 years across the planet. So I've traveled quite a lot, and I've actually enjoyed, going through a number of transformations in my past career. Thank you.
Thank you, Elie. And last but not least, we have Sean. Sean, you're joining us from Dubai, actually, isn't it?
Hi. Yes, Seah here. I'm currently leading the Microsoft Accelerator program for companies around the world with Microsoft. I also enjoy traveling the world looking for the most delicious food to eat, and I'm actually currently calling in from Dubai, and I'm looking forward to being part of this panel.
Fantastic. And actually, you know what? We've been talking about this panel for when we were preparing it, and we were thinking we would test it out as a nice little podcast and see if there's any audience that enjoy this kind of topic around this part of the world in Asia. Because while there's a lot of interesting podcasts out there about digital transformation and enterprise agility, not a lot of them come from this side of the world in APAC and Asia. So who knows? Maybe this is a beginning of something. Let's use this as a POC and a spike for ourselves to test that out. So today's topic. Now we have Julian from Divit, which is a up-and-coming startup, already booming already. We've got someone from the enterprise side, but also someone from a large vendor side, Microsoft, but also with vast amount of experience. Today, we want to talk about adopting Agile, but not just for IT and software development. It's really about how do we bring that beyond IT and software development, going to marketing and legal and risk. So all-encompassingly enabling an organization itself to adopt in an ever-changing environment, especially in the last couple of years. I'm sure I don't need to explain much on that. So first discussion point, what does enterprise agility means for your organization? Who wants to take that one to start us off? Elie, would you like putting a few words together about that topic? What does enterprise agility mean for you and Jockey Club?
Sure. So enterprise agility for us means basically ensuring that we can cover most of the enterprise key functionalities, process procedures, and key deliverables as well. So we're looking at holistically how we can transform the way people work and the way people collaborate across all divisions and all departments. So it's actually much broader than really looking at IT or as technology, but it's really looking at broader across the full value chain and delivery chain. So that includes things around, the product management, product developments with business owners and product owners, but also includes things around, budgeting and planning, capacity planning, HR as well. So all the key functions are involved in that transformation. It's quite a huge scale and huge scale transformation that we are taking care. Obviously, it cannot be done into one single step. So we'll probably be talking about that later into that podcast. But there are multiple steps, we went through before getting to a full enterprise transformation.
Yes. And you and I have been kind of working together in the last couple of years on this topic with the Jockey Club, and I really like you mentioned something that is a large transformation, right? So I think going in, we knew that it's number one, not going to be an easy journey, but number two, it's not going to be a big bang overnight thing that can happen. There's a lot of people involvement, training, and giving people the opportunity to learn and experiment. I think that's what I've observed very, very successful in the Jockey Club.
It is a step-by-step approach. So we really started in a very humble manner, right? We piloted, we picked up a number of, if you want, product and number. We stood up a number of teams, and we actually took about a year to pilot Agile. And while we were actually piloting Agile, we started also to define our playbook, so the guidelines, and we started to involve some key stakeholders across the enterprise to really make sure that the teams were starting to be self-organized. And a self-organized team is not something that comes naturally at all, you know. So it took us about a year to pilot and pilot successfully across multiple products. But it's a lot of hands-on, you know, it's a lot of support from a number of people, coaches, and also standing up some champions within the company. So people who can actually talk over, rally people, influence, and go through all the hurdles and the pushback, any change and an agility transformation at an enterprise scale level, you will always face pushback, naturally, right? Any change comes with this type of challenges. So you need people that can actually understand, listen, and across multiple sessions and multiple sprints, if you want to call them sprints, slowly rally even those detractors who supposedly not convinced that Agile can bring benefits. Agile brings a lot of benefits. We'll discuss that later in that roundtable.
Thank you, Elie. Now, I want to contrast that with Divit and Julian. Now, Divit, you also come from a enterprise background in your previous life. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think you all kind of startup journey started about 2 or 3 years ago, similar time when I started working with Elie on that Agile journey. So, but from that viewpoint, we've heard from Elie the challenges and the big scale side of things. With a startup mind now that in your current role, what does Agile look like for Divit for you, and how does it work with your team, but also your partners?
Absolutely. We so after the learnings of being in corporate life for near on 17, 18 years, I took a lot of those learnings and transformation practices and agile practices from that life and brought it to Divit. So from the beginning, we deliberately set up the business so that we were, and because we have to be very agile. And when we work with partners, so such as Citibank, who does our banking side of things, we still have to go through a lot more of the kind of the traditional ways of doing things. So, we've kind of got those two contrasts on both sides. One that we want to be very quick to respond to, new requests from our customers, new requests from the merchants that we deal with. And then with our partners such as Cathay Pacific and Asia Miles and Hong Kong Express that live in a bit more of a kind of a traditional world, we have to balance that speed on both sides. And it's not just necessarily about agile systems. And we did find, I did find that in my previous life that just by having, the latest and greatest agile tool installed doesn't make teams agile. And then I think wrapped around your tooling and your agile systems, you've kind of got this transformation which needs to happen around a larger organization. So to bring it back to what the last 3 years have been is, we work at very much different speeds for different clients. And we work, quite differently with different vendors and different merchants.
Fantastic. I think the observation there is what reflected when you said that is kind of starting Agile in a smaller space and from the get-go when there's clean state and you know what you're doing about, pretty easy. But it's how do you then scale it out and influence, right? It's not just about the organization, the people you work with as well. I think that's a great segue because, like, from Sean's viewpoint, from Microsoft's viewpoint, but also I know you work with a lot of new technologies, right, Sean? So again, the same question for you, like from your observation with working your clients as well in the retail space, what does enterprise agility mean from your viewpoint?
Yeah, I think the one thing I've learned about the whole agile and agility space is it's not the biggest, it's not the smartest, it's not the richest, it's not the strongest companies that succeed. It's the ones that are most adaptable. And we've all heard about stories of companies that didn't adapt, like Kodak and Nokia, etc. And so I think that's the one feature that stands out to me. And to me, enterprise agility is the ability to understand and adapt to the trends in the market and where your customers are going, which is fundamentally key. And I've had that a lot of that experience with various companies, all the way from startups through to corporates. And I think it's that ability within Microsoft. We have this pillar called growth mindset, the ability to always look to the future, to constantly innovate. And in fact, in Microsoft, innovation is the only thing that's constant. And the market rewards innovation. If you don't innovate with the latest technologies and following your customers, then you essentially get left behind. So I think that to me is enterprise agility, the ability to stay ahead of the market, your customers, and your competition, to be real and relevant to your customers.
Fantastic. I think that's a very good summary and observation from that viewpoint as well. And the common theme that's coming across is that ability to adapt to the changing market, be it in the startup world, be it in the vendor world, be it in the large enterprise world, is what I'm seeing coming through. No, thank you for that. Now, Elie just now touched on a little bit about when we talk about the benefit and where do we start and how do we go. On the screen, here's one of the approach that I kind of put together. And there are many, there are many flavors and many ways to skin a cat. But like I mentioned, at a smaller team, we've been doing agile, let's face it, in the last 20 years with IT teams, right? Starting with a team of 5 to 10, quite simple. And it used to be about finding a simple project that you can small enough and enough control, cherry pick that project, start that as an agile team, as a scrum team or Kanban team. And then the theory goes that, people get interested. What are these people doing with the sticky notes and everything? How come they're so happy? How come they can deliver faster? And that way you can influence and slowly scale up the agility. The problem in my experience is it takes a few years for that. And then you go to the next stage when you go to the scaled agile. Now you have 10 Scrum teams, 15 Scrum teams, but it's still very IT focused. Then by that time, we're already maybe 5 years into the journey, the transformation journey. But then the next step, what we really want to talk about, and we mentioned about today, is about that enterprise agility beyond IT, right? It's market focused, it's business focused. That means if we use a traditional way of starting just with one small IT team, it's going to be a very long journey. With that, right, I just want to ask the panel open for the panelists, like, what do you think are number one, how did your agile journey start for yourself or your company? Where did you start, right? Did you start from the journey that I just explained, step by step, so slowly, small scale to grow? Or did you have something else in mind? What was your approach? Any takers?
Sure, I'm happy to take the first one. I think it's a little bit easy for us. We were born agile. So in the beginning, we were about having a multifunctional team. It was about communication, putting in place all of the hygiene factors for Scrum to get Scrum working really well, and making sure that we got constant feedback, and we brought that feedback loop back into the team. So we were looking at recordings of the platform. We were looking at areas where our users had issues, transacting with that, and then feeding it back, be that to ourselves internally or to the partners. So, to City or to Cathay, the team at Hong Kong Express as well. And that really is what kickstarted it, and we've spun out some other teams as well. And so you've got two different teams working on two different things, and then that kind of scrum of scrums, as that next logical step has really helped and worked with us.
Fantastic. I think being born agile, but then Then let me ask you, as you scale your business, how would you look at keeping that constant learning and feedback? Do you find any challenges, Julian, as your team size grows, right? And you as the co-founder, but also I know that you're very key in being a scrum master for the team, being an agile coach, being a product owner as well, right? You wear multiple hats. Do you think, what would be some of the things that you might want to put in place as your company grows?
I think for me personally, it's more about delegation and finding that there are, I've got a great team, and the guys that have joined us are top performers, but it is be able to step back and to let them go, and that they understand and they make the decisions for the organization. And I think that part of it does come down to culture and setting the right culture, and then leading from the front and saying, yes, we want to react quickly to customer inquiries. We want to be proactive in finding different ways, because we want our customer experience to be the best customer experience in the market. And then once you've got that culture and everyone is living what that ethos is, then scaling, I think, kind of becomes easier. And then it's more of a communication challenge between the different teams, especially if they're working on different things inside the business. We've got a big marketing push which is happening, and initially the marketing team thought, okay, well, we can just set up our own separate Scrum and we don't need to join the bigger team because we're not interested in the platform build. Now we've actually got it to a point where both teams are together and they're communicating quite frequently, in 2 days, and we have that as kind of a joint Scrum set up. So yeah, there's lots of different methods, and I feel that because initially I was a bit more down the corporate path of doing things, which is very much by the book. And then once I went back and read some of the very early agile methodologies, and I realized that there was some phrases in there which said it was more like a framework. It wasn't a thou shalt and you must do it in this particular way, so that there was that flexibility for customization and to find something that works for a business of our size versus a much larger enterprise.
100%. I think I totally agree with you in terms of the number one, the communication, and good to see that you're expanding the agility towards not just IT, right, to marketing. But in terms of agile, it's been a mindset and a lot of frameworks out there. Dr. Jeff Sutherland came up with Scrum with Ken Webster, right? They also, if you look back at the Scrum Guide, it's also always about the principle and the whole Shiharu in terms of you need to learn the basics rules first, but then once you've known enough, you should be able to manipulate and use the right tool set and right mindset to adapt to the right situation. Going back to the theme of adaptation.
Yeah, and just on that point, I did pull up the Agile Manifesto again, and it's the first 4 words that are in there. We are uncovering better ways of developing, and it says that and this was written in 2001, so 20 years ago. And I think it still holds a lot of truth today, is that we are still uncovering better ways of developing software, better ways of doing things.
That's another fantastic point as well, right? We've got, compared to 20 years ago, a lot more, we're going into automated testing, TDD, BDD, right? While the concept was there and people were already doing it, but now we're at the stage where we can scale those kind of technologies, right? But I want to ask Sean on this point as well, because I also know you work with, like I said, a lot of different companies, different startups, and you have that viewpoint, I think, in your role as well, to see the different agile transformation journey for different companies. What are some of the common themes or challenges that you would observe on this topic?
Yeah, I think the story I can share is when I was with HSBC and I was running innovation partnerships, and we were building out next-gen products. So the first P that you need are the right kind of people. So what we did was we brought together people from legal, risk, finance, all the people outside of IT, digital, and the business, and bring all them all together in one place. And we got them and we taught them what agile was. So it's really important to get them ready for the concept. The second thing is HSBC in Hong Kong is distributed through multiple locations. So we had to put them in the same place. We co-located them and said, come out of your day-to-day job and come into this new team to basically work through this new process and methodology. The next thing, we gave them a project, which was next-gen banking. So that would enable them to think about the next-gen customer, a very, very clear project in terms of creating propositions and products and services for these guys. And then we ran them through the cycles. And at the very beginning, it was a lot of friction. A lot of people didn't know what to do. They couldn't make decisions on behalf of their department, etc. But over time, you develop the muscle. You develop the agile Scrum muscle to work through the sprint cycles, through the retrospectives, all the typical things. But it taught them a new way of working with the right kind of people with a specific project. And I think that's really, really key to drive scale. And hopefully that sparked off a bit of a culture where a lot of people now run various things. I mean, we benchmarked at the time HSBC off a bank in Europe who disrupted the entire bank, fired everyone, and then made everyone reapply for their jobs and put them into agile Scrum teams. That was huge. But because of that precedent, they were incredibly successful in bringing financial product out at speed and scale. And I think that was a good lesson for HSBC to learn.
I want to think a little bit about that point. So that's obviously a very radical and drastic change, right? What you mentioned, what they did in Europe. What was it like? How do you view that? Like, in your opinion, was it the right move?
Well, the numbers show that in the first 12 months of the reorganization, numbers dipped. But in the second year, it eclipsed what was before. So if you take a financial metric, the answer is yes. If you take a people metric, it was very challenging, right? It was a way to kind of say that the bank is going in this direction, and the people who wanted to be on the bus, that were on the bus, people who didn't, found jobs elsewhere. Because agile is not for everyone. There is a certain way, a methodology that people just kind of adapt, and you can't force people into a new way of working. You've got to inspire them and encourage them. So that's the people part. And then in terms of, does it last? Yeah, they're still doing it. They're still an incredibly successful bank. And a lot of other banks have copied them. So if you call that successful, yes. So
there you go. No, I just thought that, I'm trying to imagine myself that, if I'm asked to do something new tomorrow and I have to say, I learn it from scratch and then reapply for it, how would I feel? But I think you nailed it on his head, right? Depends on what angle you look at it. Right. And I think it's that balance, right? And it's also about, do you want to have a short-term problem or long-term problem, right? So it's finding that right balance as well. Elie, I know that you...
Sorry, Andrew, just to jump in, to build on that, I think it's a really great point. And an analogy that I like to use is actually about music. And kind of, I think of the traditional way of working to be like you're playing in a symphony. You've got the sheet music, you do all of this rehearsals, and then you kind of always are playing that type of music and you're doing it that way. And people, just like their jobs, if you've got finance people, they could be a violinist or a cellist or someone like that. And then you move them across into the jazz world of doing things where you've got smaller teams. We have to listen to each other. We have to adapt. And some of the things we won't have all of this time to prepare. There are some people that love jazz music. I'm a big jazz fan. And there are other people that just want to stay in the classical world of doing things. But still, they're playing their instrument. They're just learning to do it in a different way.
100%. And that's the thing, right? To get the orchestra or get the whole enterprise going, you kind of need a bit of both as well, right? It's not a monolithic environment that you want to create. Elie, I knew you were going to say something about that, but I think one of the key things that, again, I'm hearing some common themes from Sean's sharing is about, the first step that he started was to get the different areas and different skill sets together, right? Legal and everyone, but also then tell them what's coming and then upskill them is the way I looked at it. What's your thought on that, Elie?
Yeah, that's very true. I just want to rebound on what Sean is saying. It's very true for the club as well, is that you cannot embark in such transformation without getting the people, with you. And I think you have to build the right story. right? The right story at each level of the organizations. So, no transformation actually can be successful without the support of its executive team. Obviously, right? It comes from a top down, but at the same time, you have to build it bottom up. You have to, and that's the reason why at the club we started with some piloting some project with people, and we really put people together across multiple functions, right? So cross-functional teams from the business as well from IT across multiple locations as well. And then we define basically the story. What's in it for me, really? When you embark in such transformation, the story needs to be simple. Is it about speed to market? Is it about, optimizing productivity and cost to deliver? Is it about experience to customer? How we provide a better customer experience for our products and services? So you have to make the story compelling and accessible for everyone. And that's the way you embark into such transformation. And then, as Julian said as well, we have to have a framework, right? Not a rigid process and procedure guidelines, but a playbook, a framework. And we define that framework with the team, with the executive team at the club. So we came up with kind of 7 key pillars around ways of working, team organization, practices, tooling, metrics, learning pathway, and how you basically measure maturity. As you're going to evolve into that and spread and scale up agility across multiple teams, how you basically bring the people and get them, the teams and the people in the teams be more mature within agile. So defining all the certification, the training curriculum, all the things. So we went through all that exercise. And once we had that framework, basically, we took the team across the journey. That would have not been possible without having a set of teams that we define as the Agility COE, Center of Excellence. So we built up a Center of Excellence, which was a mix of champions, as I said before, coaches, and also people from the executive team. And the COE, the Center of Excellence, would actually take care of ensuring that there was a progress in that transformation through a set of levels. So we stood up levels of maturity and level of progress into the agility transformation. We stood up tribes, center of practices to get our people trained. We also stood up an academy across the years. And then we also doubled down on communication. So we had newsletter, we did video. I went personally to speak to people in forums, in session, So this is a lot of things that really we have to organize and plan, properly as a plan to ensure that the transformation can become a success. And it's a success at the club. It's not by luck, obviously. It's by planning it in detail and ensuring that you've got the team along the journey that actually you can take over.
So that's 100% true, and it's incredible. I love how you talked about, and it kind of reflects to the diagram on the screen, right? Back in the days when I was, being trained as a management consultant, it's always about executive buy-in. But now we also talk about bottom up as well, right? We make sure we bring the people along the journey. And having had the pleasure to be on this transformation journey with you, Elie, with the club, me and my colleague, we just conducted a bunch of training yesterday for the club, as a matter of fact, and was reflecting that the planning, like you said, right, it's not by luck, right? It's by plan. But the amazing thing, that's the most rewarding thing for me, coming in external to help, right, be a small part to help, is it's very fair, right? You look at the amount of effort that the club have put into it, and along the journey, now we look at the output, right? I compared it day one when we started training, and then yesterday, just even at a training, small things at a training, people speaking up, people asking very, very critical questions, right? And not just sticking, back to Julian's point, not just sticking to the framework and tell me what does a guide say, and I'll just do that, right? Created that ability to learn and continuously improve. And I think that's one of the key things of agility as well. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I think the other point that Elie made, and just with the demonstration of the whole system, or the ecosystem that they have for agility at the Jockey Club, means that you just can't train your way out and train your way to enterprise agility, which I think in years gone by, that was some people's understanding of things. We just send you guys off to training, for a couple of days. We get, guys in like yourself, Andrew, and do that. And now magically, bang, we're ready to go. We're agile, and it doesn't work like that.
No, you're right. Any large transformation doesn't work that way. So absolutely. We had few, just to tell a bit of the story, we had few, hiccups. Traditionally, the way business and IT would collaborate, was one of the key challenges. And I must say that, bring smaller team of 8 people as agile team, with a product owner, which was a brand new role at the club, having a product owner, help us to really foster collaboration between teams. That's for sure, right? But the second key challenge was about, having this huge monolithic scope. You embark into such a big project. You always have, thousands of requirements, and going through that on a very waterfall was one of the key challenges we face as well, because this project, as you know as well, takes a long time, too long, right? And in a fast-paced market that we are all, into, this process were actually too elongated. So defining something around a minimum viable product, with a shorter releases in a shorter cycles was something that definitely helped us as well. But also the way to adapt, being able to adapt, again, back to what Sean said, adapt the scope, adapt the plan, adapt the timelines, things that, people would be scared of doing, because traditionally, you measured on time, cost, and quality, right? And having to play with these dimensions in an agile world, make things challenging from a mindset perspective, but helps you to be much more able to adapt to the market. And that's what one of the key featured benefits that agile brings to the organization, is to be closer to the constant change that the market is going through.
That's totally correct. And I think you mentioned a few points. I want to dig a little bit deeper and segue into the next thing we're going to discuss was some of the challenges. I think we started to touch on that. But I think from Sean and Elie, and obviously from Julian as well, but then both of you mentioned something just now that I think is quite interesting for me to learn more and understand more. Sean, you mentioned about, we started with bringing the other department, right? Because we talk about enterprise agility and new market, not just, we're talking about next gen, not just about IT, right? And Elie, you talked about, getting the executive buy-in, but also working the challenge between business and IT. What was your experience, and how was it when you told the non-IT folks, right? Okay, we're doing agile, we want agility. What were their feedback like? Was there a lot of pushback saying, what's this all about? Like, especially finance, CFO, for example, right? You want to tell me, the CFO, you want to tell me you want $2 million US, and then you're not going to exactly tell me when you're going to deliver, and you're not going to tell me when you're going to deliver? No way, right? Like, what was the experience for you guys?
I can start. I mean, if you want me to start.
Yeah, I'll take that one.
Yep. Sean, I think it's just a bit delayed. Sean, why do you kick us off?
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's when Agile and Waterfall start to kind of cross over, in that, as Julian said, no Agile is purely Agile, and nothing is truly Waterfall. So I think we have to saying that people are measured on budgets and times and growth, right? And I think the key is to blend the both. You can't completely say, give me $2 billion, we don't deliver you anything. You have to have some kind of feature deliverable. But at the same time, I think as long as you hit some of the higher level numbers, the way you do it will be different. That, I think, is the way to sell Agile. And that traditional would be, by what time will you deliver, which milestone, by which cost, etc. That would be pushed out to say, give me 1 year, give me the $2 million, and I'll deliver you things, but it'll be in a different pace and style depending on where the customer is leading us. I think that's the blend of the two. You've got to have corporate speak within your agile mindset, and depending on the organization's maturity in it, you will say different things at different times. For some, it'll be super easy. Like startups generally are more agile; they'll just say, "We'll just go for it." Whereas corporates, you just got to be a bit more rigid in the flow between the orchestra and the jazz band.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because if I look at all the new scale, well, it's not really new, but the scaled agile framework like SAVE, like Scrum at Scale, like DSDM, or the PMPI one, the Deflex, it's exactly what you talk about. It's actually, I think 5 years ago, everyone would hate me for saying this, like, oh, you can be both waterfall and agile, whereas some people are very focused on, I just want to be agile and pure agile, right? But it's very difficult to do that at a large enterprise stage. It's exactly what you said. It's a blend of that hybrid and agility, and that's actually just made me realize what is new scaling framework. It's exactly trying to achieve that, right? With PI planning and big room planning and Scrum. It's about giving that high level overview and roadmap so that the organization can have certain, at least some amount of certainty, right? You need that to move forward. Julian, you were going to say something, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to go back to that point that Sean said about what it's like in a startup. My personal reflection is with the resources that I had at my previous companies, which were vast compared to having it as a startup. That was, I found it, there was an inertia that you had to get over and to get the organization moving and to do that. From a startup, it's actually a different problem on the kind of different scale of the issues, where it's easy to get distracted because you can be so agile, and it's easy to have kind of these functions and features which you might do for one particular client, but that's not reusable. And then you've got your North Star that you would have on a 2-year transformation project, which you're always kind of tracking to. But in the startup world, you're constantly going out there to try and find where's the different bits, how can you delight your customers, and then find things in that fail fast idea. So yeah, it's kind of like those two ends of the spectrum.
Amazing. Yeah, you sometimes forget about that as well. Like, how do you fail fast and learn fast? And like I mentioned a few times before, I would have thought being in an agile world with a small team, things are more flexible and kind of you just have to do it, right? But yeah, you're totally right. I never thought about it that way. You could have had the second side of the things, and you almost must be more nimble and be laser focused on what you invest in, really.
Yeah, it's a lot of discipline to kind of stay on, what your strategy is, and to make sure that we're building the product out in that way, because everyone's got lots of great ideas, and bringing it back to the enterprise side of things. My experience was you've got business people that had a healthy respect and a very clear understanding of that technology in the insurance world was such a huge part of their business, and they were very open to understand what the methodologies and the processes were to make technology and to make software happen. And then also they wanted to get it because they could kind of see that there was a natural evolution in their business, and it has to go that way. So those kind of people were great candidates to be on the project teams. And then you had on the other end of the spectrum people that didn't want to change, and people that were just happy doing what they were doing all the time. Those people that embraced it and that were part of it, they enjoyed the process of building software and making sure that there was something that was tailored to their business and to their needs and to make their life easy. But what I did find in many cases, especially when there was a level of emotional connection or pride around their work, was getting to that MVP and to prioritize things was often hard for them. And it was hard for them because in the past, if they were involved in other technology projects, they said, well, I only ever get half of what I want. It costs me like 2 or 3 times the amount of money, and the amount of pain that I have to go through because the quality of it is bad, is horrendous. So if I don't push for everything, right from the beginning, and the release goes in and it goes away, and the project team goes away, then I'm never going to get anything that can help me in my job and can help my department or my team or my business to be able to deliver. And getting them over that hurdle by saying, well, this is we've got a 2-year, project or a 1-year project. We're fully budgeted for this year. We're going to figure things out, but we're going to be disciplined. We're going to deliver in increments, and we're going to deliver tested working software. And I can tell you that, we can deliver something in 6 months' time or 3 months' time. What we're going to deliver in there, that's up to you guys to tell us. And on the development team, we'll tell you what's possible in these small little time boxes of 2 weeks, and you make the call about what the right thing is. And it's very different to the traditional conversations that we were having in the early 2000s. When we were just building software, as an IT shop, in a data center somewhere, seen as kind of a back office function.
I think it definitely brings up what you just said just now, kind of on the screen, alignment with business and business objective, right? And IT shouldn't just be told to do; they need to be understood, and vice versa, right? But I don't want to skip Elie as well, because I'm not going to ask you how did it first got received. Well, I guess the question for you is slightly changed because I was kind of in the room as well when it was first introduced. But how is agile or agility being perceived in the club now, 2-3 years into our journey?
Yeah, it's been a journey, and as I said, right, Andrew, at the start, we faced a lot of pushback, because people traditionally, a lot of them don't want to go outside of the circle of, confidence and the circle of where they feel actually good, right? So we had basically to take the people, our employees and our business through that journey, showing them basically some of the key benefits, the simple benefits, like, Julian mentioned, how you prioritize, how you define, you give the teams the autonomy to define basically the scope of what's going to be the first marketable product you're going to launch, right? This is a big ask, right? These are big expectations, and people actually have the autonomy to define that minimal viable product. It's quite rewarding for them to basically think not only about process and documentation and requirements, but think about basically customer outcome, experience, journey, right? So really looking at the value we're going to bring for our customers to enjoy our product and services. So along the journey, while they're actually going through that process, our people started to understand that, yes, there are a lot of changes that they had to face. The team were organized totally different. In an agile team, you organize yourself very differently from a traditional waterfall teams, right? Where typically things are sequential. In an agile team, you really work along with the business and product on a daily basis, on a very regimented, cadenced, based on sprint, based on product increment PI when you go into scale agile. So that cadence changed the way people actually work together. And yes, we had actually to put people together, so that actually the product owner could actually work with the IT teams on the same locations. And people started to see the benefit of actually not only moving faster, but designing the product, the end product, the way they would actually define it. We bring the most value and the most benefit for our customer. So really about customer centricity. Today, if we ask our people, did they enjoy the journey? They would tell, yes, we went through a lot of hurdles. It was a tough journey, but we learned along the way, and they would certainly not go back to the premise of what we used to use before in the waterfall world.
Right, you almost kind of need like I think what Julian mentioned was very good as well. Kind of, you need to have to align and convince them, and you need to have a really good case and gain the trust on the business side in order to do that. And actually reflecting on what you just said as well, Elie, and our journey together. I'm currently working with another large enterprise, and they've got about their business thrown their IT and digital team about 9,000 Jira tickets within 3 months with a small IT team, right? Because like Julian said, like everyone or the business just want what they want, and not considering, well, what's the value to the end customers or overall company, and just thought IT or digital team should be able to do that, right? And again, it's about that alignment. We've kind of touched on a lot on the challenges and how to deal with some of these challenges. The next figure is on the screen. I'm not trying to scare people, right? But according to Scrum Inc. again, 47% of agile transformation fail. That's quite alarming, right? That's almost half, right? So we kind of touch on the challenges, but what would be, if I were to ask each of you a key takeaway, what would your one piece of advice be? Sean, can I start with you?
Yeah, I think the whole agile methodology in process is like going to the gym. It's a muscle that you've got to flex and grow, and you don't do it overnight, and you don't do it and then stop. You just got to keep going, and you'll have good days, you'll have bad days. You'll have days that you smash it apart, and then you just don't like doing it. And so to me, that's like a habit you form as a company culture, as a way of working. It's like going to the gym. You just got to keep going at it and keep growing the muscle, and hopefully the curve will be trending top right, even with little bumps in the way.
So it's always about keep the consistency and keep trying and training the muscle, right? And you don't, I love this thing. I love this analogy because when people ask for me to be an agile coach and things like that, I'm like, well, while I'm there, I'll teach you how to do it, just like a PT, but I can now build the muscle for you. And when I'm gone, you better still be going to the gym, because otherwise you'll be back at day one, right? So fantastic.
Yeah, and the other, just to take that analogy one step further, if you are an agile coach and you're talking to an organization there, some of them have got the idea of like, you're asking me to do the push-ups. Well, that's what I've got you here to do. No. Like if you want to grow the muscles, you got to do the push-ups.
Yeah, I usually say to my coaches, you have to actually do the changes, but your success will be measured once I don't need you. So the faster, the quicker I don't need you, the more successful you are, right? So it's very true.
Yes. But Julian and Elie, what's your key advice about that though?
For me, the key advice, 2 simple words, being resilient, because the journey you will have to take on a lot at every level. So be resilient, keep pushing and keep driving, and convincing people. And the second word is empathy. Empathy. Really, you have to listen to people. A lot of people actually are pushing back. They are pushing back for some good reasons sometimes. So you have to keep listening and take their feedback and constantly review your plan, your 2 years to 3 years plan. It's not set in the stone. I mean, you have a plan, but it's actually an agile plan. You have to revise it constantly, take the feedback, and fine tune it. So I think that's the two keywords of it.
So resilient and empathy, and constantly reviewing and making sure you're going in the right direction. Fantastic. Julian?
All great points, I think, from both Elie and Sean. I think reflecting on my personal journey and what makes these transformations succeed in the best way is people that are open, and they come in with that growth mindset, that they are willing to try something, that they kind of park their egos and their positions and their titles, leave that at the door before you come into the team, because at the end of the day, we're all people, we're all humans, and I strongly believe that people don't wake up in the morning, go to work, spend 8 or 10 hours of their best time that they have with people that they don't really know or don't care about, just to go and do a bad job. And I don't think people wake up in the morning to go and do a bad job. I think there's reasons behind, and that if there's an open, trusting way which people can communicate, and then can also drill into what those reasons are. Once people get that understanding of why a product owner might be asking for this feature, or why technology might be pushing back on something, then I think that leads to better outcomes, which then leads to more efficiency, more trust inside the team, and then ultimately, hopefully, delivers the a better outcome for your project and for your organization.
Fantastic. We're about to wrap up, but I did have one of the Q&A, and I think it's a great teaser set, depending on the audience later on, if they want to have more discussion about these topics. When I crowdsourced on the Q&A for this panel, right, from on LinkedIn and online, one of them that really stood out, I thought was quite interesting for all of you. Do you guys think agile and enterprise agility is a must for the new world and new wave of next generation in terms of the Web3, fintech, NFT and metaverse world? What do you guys think?
Absolutely. I mean, if we look at what's happening in the crypto space now, they will adapt. They will come out in different ways and do different things. And if you're not agile to be able to do those, to adapt to those circumstances, then I don't think you're going to stay around.
John?
No, I totally agree. I think it actually extends beyond just work. I think you live a life that's resilient, adaptable, agile. You just got to be relevant to the direction you're heading. So it's not a particular phase in technology. It's just a lifestyle that you want to constantly grow.
100%, and I try to do that every day myself as well. And last but not least, Elie?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say anything different, right? I mean, agility is about being able to be adaptable, right, and flexible, and change, course correct, improve over time. Being lean. So it's not about technology. Yes, I mean, today it would be Web3, it would be blockchain and so, but tomorrow will be new technology as well. So the technology will always evolve, but the ways of working, the ways of actually grabbing and defining scope actually is not going to be changing. So that's important. And being agile more than anytime before is now super crucial, because we are in a point in time with the fourth revolution where the technology change is actually accelerating, the pace of change is accelerating. So we really need to have the ways of working that help the team to be more and more adaptable.
Fantastic. I think that's amazing. And to me also, just to add a little bit to that, I think it's almost like, I look at it almost like creating an AI engine in an organization with agility that you can constantly just learn and adapt and see the changing of situation. I think our time is wrapping up. It's been amazing talking to all our panelists today. Thank you, Revive Tech Asia, for inviting us. We've heard some really, really good feedback and summary today from the team. Constantly adapting, constantly getting feedback through the right people with different skill sets, and make sure that we level them up, getting the right store at different level, and consistency, resilience, empathy, and be open and have a growth mindset. I think it's been amazing talking to all three of you, my friend, and then hopefully we can do this again very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks.
Andrew.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Yeah.